start dimming the lights, you start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs, and the room is studded. More once you discover. For all of the lovers of Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers of Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers of Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape for every one of us. I was kinda late, cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of them.
Hey y'all, welcome to another new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. I've got a really big news and gossipish segment for y'all today. And of course, I have your weekly recap featuring Raw, AEW, NXT, and SmackDown. So sit back, relax, and listen to your favorite chill, positive, and passionate show, the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Alright, in this news and gossipish, I'm going to talk about a whole lot that took place this week, even stuff that happened even as late as last night when we were watching SmackDown on Fox. So there was this point where it was on a commercial, and I remember live tweeting on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast Twitter page at Hardy WrestlePod. Please follow if you haven't already. And I was live tweeting during SmackDown, and right before the Street Profits were getting ready to face off against the Dirty Dogs, news broke out of WWE NXT releases. And it was kind of crappy because some of these people were actually going on to be featured on 205 Live later on in the night. And they were all getting released, out of nowhere. And it was being reported on by Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful.com. Because he's like a really dependable insider most of the time. And he's usually the one to break this news. So he broke news of these releases. And it was kind of heartbreaking because you're trying to pay attention and have fun with SmackDown. But at the same time, you have the trauma of watching so many people that you love on NXT get released as well. So I'm going to list them all right here, right now. Bobby Fish, according to Get the Tables, Bobby Fish got released. Former NXT North American champion Bronson Reed got released. Jake Atlas, who we came to know more about as he participated in a cruiserweight tournament last year, he got released. Ari Sterling, who was set to face off in a match, I think last night or even last week when he had to face Leon Ruff, he got released. Kona Reeves, who had been with NXT for like a long time, who had been on TV but then not been on TV. He was off and on with his booking. He got released. Former NXT North American champion Leon Ruff, who is also engaged to referee Aja Smith, he got released. And that was surprising and heartbreaking to me because he had a really good, low-key, the feud that he had with Isaiah Swerve Scott was really good. Once they did give attention to it, but I couldn't believe that he got released, and I'm really sad about it. But he thanked everyone on Instagram, for everybody supporting him and everything, and how glad he was, to work with a lot of people that he had admired and looked up to for a long time, and having to go to work with his best friend and his fiance. So he was really graceful about it. Stephon Smith, who I believe is a referee, he got released. Tyler Rust, who is newly put into the Diamond Mine faction along with Roderick along with Roderick and Malcolm Bivens, he got released, and that was really surprising because he was that faction just made their debut, and now he's gone, and that was really shocking. Zechariah Smith was released, Asher Hale was released, Giant Zangier was released, and the worst of all that actually impacted one of my sisters with Women's Wrestling Talk, Ella Jackson. She was devastated at the release of Mercedes Martinez, who we came to know through the Mae Young Classic the first go round. And then she left to go back to the independents. And then she came back to NXT and then was also a part of Retribution and went back to NXT and had a little bit of a feud going on with a couple of people, including Xia Li and also the champion Raquel Gonzalez. And it was so heartbreaking because she was making waves in her own way. And so to see her get released was very shocking. It was really sad to my colleague. And it was just heart-wrenching to see all these people get let go. Like, it's never good to watch someone lose their job, ever. I know I've been in that situation before where I've lost a job or where I've quit a job and didn't know what was coming next, but still having the faith to look forward and knowing that something else, would take its place. But seeing as it's only been, less than 24 hours, it was really hard. And then being a fan, from my perspective, and watching all of that happen while SmackDown was going on, I know a lot of people on Twitter were saying that they were just going to turn SmackDown off because they were bummed out about it. I didn't, but I totally respect anybody who felt that way. And then in the same week, you saw Bray Wyatt released. Like, within the same span of a few days, you saw Bray Wyatt released, which was really shocking. Because he was one of the most successful stars that NXT created. And then for him to go on the main roster and have his Wyatt family faction with Eric Redbeard now and the late Brody Lee and Braun Strowman. It's just really shocking because most of them made waves in so many different ways, shape, or form. And now they're all gone. And it's a lot. And I know that, and a part of me wants to believe that with Bray Wyatt, he had been going through a lot emotionally and mentally over the past couple of months, like between him and his mental health and then the death of Brody Lee, who he worked so closely with for so long. The last time we saw him, in a match on television was at WrestleMania, in night 2, I believe. And he was having his match with Randy Orton, and then Alexa Bliss turned on him. And she's basically been keeping the whole darkness thing going. But at the same time, with the playground and everything, and you were wondering when he was going to possibly come back and, make Alexa pay. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now. And it seemed like when WWE, released their statement about him leaving, they were saying, oh, well, we've come to terms with this and we wish him the best. So it was almost as if they both had to come to an amicable agreement. And I'm hoping there was nothing negative involved with it. And I'm hoping the best for Bray Wyatt and his health, going forward. And if he chooses to go anywhere else, then that's perfectly fine. But then if he doesn't and he chooses to sit his tail down for a minute, and just chill out, then that's fine too. Because he has children, he has, JoJo, who's his significant other, maybe wife, I don't know. They haven't really confirmed that, and it's not really our business. And then with Ric Flair even asking for his release because creatively he wasn't sure where his character or even Charlotte Flair's character was going, his daughter. Like, there's so many people leaving and being let go. And it's just so scary. Like, it's really scary. It's almost like WWE is turning into a revolving door. It's almost like they're turning into Grey's Anatomy at this point, where there's so many people who have been with that show for so long and then they leave after a certain point. Like, that's what WWE is slowly but surely turning into. It's like every other month, it's like every 3 months or so, there's a whole crop of people whom you were attached to or not fully attached to getting released, and it's heartbreaking. It's really, really heartbreaking. And it's scary because as a fan, you're at this point where you're still trying to enjoy what they have left, but then you're scared that one day or another, your favorite might be on a chopping block. And it was so sad last night. It really was sad last night. And I'm hoping that every other fan that went through that entire situation is still, trying to process it and chill and just take a breather. And just relax. So that was a lot. And then also speaking to that, you had Cassie Lee, who's formerly known as Peyton Royce, from the Iconics tag team. She talked a little bit this week about how she felt like the Iconics breaking up was her fault. She said on Dirt Sheet Radio, she said, "I don't think I've ever told anyone this, and I hope Jess, aka Billie Kay, isn't upset with me saying this." She said, "I wanted to go single. There were things I wanted to take off my bucket list as a singles competitor. So many people said that was stupid for them to break you up. Why did they break you up? I feel like it's my fault because I wanted to push myself and see what I was capable of. That might have been the worst decision that I made." And it's so sad that she's taking the blame, so much of the blame on herself for that. Because when the Iconics broke up, we were all sort of scratching our heads like, bro, what's the point in this? Like, why? Because at the time, the women's tag team division was already kind of in flux. And we were all trying to figure out, like, oh my God, like, why are they doing this? When they're an actual tag team that came in as a tag team together, right? They were best friends and they dreamed of coming to WWE. And they did that and won the tag titles. And they could have had another chance at the tag titles. But, they went solo and broke them up. And it broke a lot of people's hearts because we felt like, oh, well, them together was just like the best thing because together they were just comedy. And then they had, great chemistry as a tag team and all of that. So we were just wondering why. And then when they were separated, Billie Kay was on SmackDown and she was doing, her little shtick with the whole resume thing and trying to, get put on in another tag team with somebody else. And also, there was a point where she was following Carmella around even at WrestleMania, but then nothing came of that. And then they got released. And even Peyton Royce had the last match we saw her in was up against Asuka on Raw. And she wound up doing, a fantastic job with that, but nothing came of it. And they got released and it was just really heartbreaking. So to know now that Peyton / Cassie Lee was, trying to sort of see what she could do as a singles competitor, knowing that now, there's no blame in that. But it felt like we were all sort of blaming, oh, it's Vince's fault, and all this other stuff. Which is something that the internet wrestling community does have a tendency to do when something happens that we don't like. We feel like it's solely his responsibility. But we also have to understand that even though he ultimately has to make the decisions, I feel like there's also another tier of it that we're not understanding, that who's actually in charge of it may not necessarily be all him. So, I hate that Cassie is taking the blame for it solely, but at the same time, it's really sad how that happened, and it's sad that they're not there anymore. But I'm wishing the best for them, in whatever it is that they choose to do, whether it be going to AEW or Ring of Honor or Impact or wherever. I just hope the best for her and her best friend and whatever happens with that. But it seems like we're always quick to jump to whose fault it is without really taking into account how it's really affecting people emotionally. So it's just really sad. Also, in some other sad news, beautiful Bobby Eaton, who was a pro wrestling star a long time ago, passed away of unknown causes. And I found out that he was actually from Huntsville, Alabama, which is way in the northern part of Alabama. So it's far away from me here in Birmingham. But he was 62 years old, and it was announced by his sister, Debbie Eaton Lewis, on Facebook. She said, "I never wanted to have to post this, but my little brother, beautiful Bobby Eaton, passed away last night. When I find out all the details, I will post them. Bobby was the kindest, loving person you would ever meet. I loved him so much, and I'm going to miss him. And according to other wrestling news sites, he was hospitalized after a bad fall in July, but it's unknown whether that event had anything to do with his death. So he was a star in WCW and NWA. And even the NWA released a statement about it, saying they're saddened to hear about the passing of the legendary, beautiful Bobby Eaton, and that we send our love to his friends and family, and his impact and legacy will always be remembered. So other people also paid tribute to him, from the Cauliflower Alley Club, and wrestler Frankie Kazarian paid tribute to him by saying, "A friend and an absolute master of the craft of professional wrestling, a man whom I hope will get the recognition that he undeniably deserves. It was my pleasure to know, watch, and learn from you. Our industry is a better place because of you. Godspeed, sir." So we send special healing and peace to his family at this tough time, and anyone else who worked with him in wrestling. We send special healing and blessings to them at this hard time. Something that happened that's a little bit happier is the fact that Sheamus got engaged to his girlfriend, and he talked about it a little bit on Ryan Satin's podcast called Out of Character. So congratulations to him being engaged. And WCW, well, not WCW, what am I thinking? John Cena had a lot to say about WWE's future in an interview with USA Today, since this week was the week that the movie The Suicide Squad came out, and I actually did see it on HBO Max. It's pretty amazing. It's gory, but it's really amazing though. He did a really good job, and I feel like also last weekend, I saw him in Fast 9, and he did a really good job as Jacob Toretto as well. And I'm sitting here just, as I'm watching him be a bad guy in both of these movies, I'm sitting here trying to figure out, why is it that WWE would never let him turn heel? Because in these movies, he was such a bad guy, and I'm just sitting here like, bro, WWE really, missed an opportunity with him being a bad guy. Like, because in these movies, he did a heck of a job. I definitely recommend you watch Fast 9 and The Suicide Squad to see what I'm talking about. I won't get into it because I'm not going to spoil nothing for nobody. But he did a really good job. So in this interview with USA Today, while he was promoting the Suicide Squad movie, he said, "Man, I wish there was some sort of fountain of youth where I could be a full-time contributor." He was talking to Brian Truitt. He said, "The longer they continue to bet on an aging prospect, that makes WWE's future a little bit less stable." And this caused a lot of controversy online, with him saying that it was making WWE's future a little bit less stable. Because it's kind of true, because when it comes to their larger events, especially the big four pay-per-views, they tend to depend a lot on older stars, more nostalgic stars, and they tend to take the spotlight away from people who are there more consistently on a more consistent basis. And I think one time Mustafa Ali actually made reference to it during an episode of Raw Talk. He was talking about how he respects how a lot of people like Goldberg and like Brock Lesnar and stuff like that, paved the way. But when are you going to let me walk on that path that you paved? And it's true, because as much as we love nostalgia, I love nostalgia too. I'm the person who buys, Toon Squad clothes and, Space Jam clothes and stuff like that, because I'm a child of the 90s and all the other stuff and Disney stuff from my childhood. I love nostalgia. But at what point does depending on nostalgia sort of cut WWE's future off at the knees? Because even a few weeks ago, when we were talking about the Rolling Loud Festival and how a lot of fans felt like they should have gotten somebody to be on the Rolling Loud Festival that a lot of people knew, like your Stone Cold Steve Austins or The Rock or Jeff Hardy and stuff like that. It's just them depending so much on these older stars is going to cut off their newer stars at the knees, because if they had have put those people out there at Rolling Loud, Bianca Belair, who's the SmackDown Women's Champion, would not have been exposed to the Rolling Loud crowd. Neither would have the Street Profits either, and neither would have Carmella. So, you know, WWE is trying their best to put newer stars out there on the forefront while also still, you know, catering to their casual fans who knows who Goldberg is and all that other stuff. But you can't just solely depend on these people when they have other ventures and other things that they want to do. Like John Cena, he's gone full basically Hollywood now at this point, right? And, you know, there has been an uptake in their ratings, you know, since John Cena has come back. But you can't solely depend on him all the time. They need to do a better job of making stars out of the people who they consistently have. And I totally and I agree with John Cena and what he's saying, even though from a fan standpoint, I love the nostalgia part, but there's still the other part of them taking opportunities away from newer stars who could benefit from that star power. So, yeah. John Cena has a point there. Also in the news, we have Jordynne Grace, who wrestles for Impact Wrestling. She is a knockout, and she talked a little bit about how she's disappointed with the lack of opportunities for women with the Forbidden Door. So with this Forbidden Door relationship between Impact, AEW, and New Japan, Jordynne Grace was in an interview with TalkSport and Alex McCarthy, and she expressed her disappointment with the lack of opportunities. She said, honestly, I was super excited when it first got announced, but as the months have dragged on with only a few things happening, and they've never happened for the women, I've been more disappointed than anything else recently. Because I thought the Forbidden Door was definitely going to be wide open instead of having to knock and only a few people get in at a time. But you know, that's the nature of the business, right? She also had this to say about so few females having passed through the door by citing backstage and interpromotional politics. She said, I'm sure it has to do with politics and who can go over there, etc. You know how it is. People don't want their people to lose, so on and so forth. So Jordynne Grace has had a lot of success within the past year. She was a Knockouts champion in January of last year by defeating Taya Valkyrie, who now goes by Frankie Monet in NXT. And she went on to lose the title to Deonna Purrazzo at Slammiversary later in last year, who has gone on to become one of the longest reigning champions they've ever had. And Jordynne Grace went on to also tag team with Jazz as well, who was going on her farewell tour. And shout out to her, because I actually met her at the Belladonna division a couple months ago. So she has every right to feel this way, because it seems as if the Forbidden Door is only benefiting one person, and that's AEW, and not really benefiting Impact, and not really benefiting New Japan as a whole. And a lot of people are talking about that within the wrestling community, because it seems like there's a lot of politics that's being involved, where it seems like AEW is only doing things to favor, you know, a group of or a cluster of people like the elite. And from the outside looking in, I can see how a lot of people would say that. So there's also been a lot of controversy with AEW this week from Alfred Konuwa, who writes articles for Forbes magazine for wrestling events, and him being in a video for his show and his podcast talking about how AEW doesn't have a lot of diversity, and they're not putting a lot of emphasis on a lot of their wrestlers of color. And it's just, and I can't even argue with that, but at the same time, all the favoritism has a tendency to sort of be a little bit blatant towards Kenny Omega and the crew, and it's just not fair, because you're cutting off all these new people who are coming and wanting to do more, you know, with AEW and sort of get their foot in the door and, you know, make a name for themselves. But it seems like they're being stopped at a certain point because they're not friends with people who are part of the elite, and that's not fair. So yeah, that's a little bit. And the fact that there aren't that many opportunities in the Forbidden Door for the women when there could be is also disappointing as well, because you have people like Jordynne Grace and you have people like Deonna Purrazzo who could go up against somebody like Ty Conti, who has been rising, through the ranks of AEW and getting better. And you could have someone like Britt Baker go up against someone like Jordynne Grace. Like, why aren't you doing more with that? You could have somebody like Tasha Steelz, fight Big Swole again, even though they did just fight each other at Jobber Slam, and shout out to them because I was a sponsor of that show. You could have more matchups like that, but that's not happening. And there has to be, and if there's going to be equal opportunity, there needs to be equal opportunity for Forbidden Door opportunities for women as well. So I get exactly where she's coming from. Also in the news, there have been rumors about CM Punk and Daniel Bryan joining AEW and signing with them, but nothing has been confirmed with them at this point. It's like they're sort of watching everybody else, set themselves on fire, to say that this is happening, but they themselves have yet to say anything about it. So, on Inside the Ropes Wrestling, in an interview with Kenny McIntosh, Chris Jericho had something to say about CM Punk signing with the company. He said, well, the short answer is, of course, how cool, that would be. And he said, he's one of the few guys out there that has this mythology surrounding him because he hasn't wrestled in so long. And then he proceeded to, take CM Punk out of the conversation and say, Sting is with us now. Edge is back in WWE. Christian is with us. But you take, other than that, guys who haven't wrestled for a long time, he's probably at the top of the list unless you're going to throw Steve Austin in there. And Steve's not going to come back. Now, CM Punk has not wrestled since 2014 at the Royal Rumble in WWE. And he left after that. And so he's 42 years old now. A lot of people are questioning whether or not he would still have anything to offer in terms of being an in-ring competitor. But a lot of people would be really excited to see him simply because CM Punk still has a fan base. I know this because every now and again when something random happens on a wrestling show, they'll start chanting, CM Punk, CM Punk. And I also personally know somebody, aka my Boothang boyfriend, who would be so excited if CM Punk came back because that's his eternal fave. But, we just have to see, where it goes. Because like I said, CM Punk nor Daniel Bryan have said anything about being all elite at this point. So if they did a surprise thing and made us all scream and pop, that would be cool. Or if Daniel Bryan just decided to sign a new contract with WWE and we just don't know anything about it, then that would be fine too. But CM Punk talks so much stuff about how much he doesn't want to have anything to do with wrestling anymore. So it's just, I don't know. It's a wait and see thing. So yeah, we just gotta chill out and just wait. Also in the news, we have Pete Dunne and his WWE contract being up in the air right now. So according to Fightful Select, Pete Dunne's contract is set to expire sometime after SummerSlam weekend, which is in 2 weeks now. And it was also previously reported by Wrestling Inc.'s Raj Giri that Adam Cole's contract was set to expire after SummerSlam, which a lot of people are thinking that that's the reason why NXT is going through a free-for-all right now with everybody getting fired, because there's the rumor that once you fire people, it means that they're trying to make room and make negotiations for somebody else's contract to give them more money. And I'm not sure because I'm not a business person. I don't know. I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know how that works. But I would hope that all these people getting fired wouldn't be the scapegoat for trying to keep one person, because that would suck. So Pete Dunne has been under NXT since 2016, and it's just, he's been, in the middle of this ongoing feud because he's now a part of this faction with, I believe, is Oney Lorcan. He's a part of the stable with Oney Lorcan and Ridge Holland, who made his return from his injury that he dealt with last year. And there's really nothing clear going on with him right now, but I would hope that they would do whatever they can to keep him either with NXT or bump him up to the main roster, because he talks so much stuff about being, the best technical wrestler in all of WWE. Bring him up to the main roster and let him have a match against Cesaro. That would be killer. So, I don't know. I'm hoping that he's not leaving, but if he is leaving, then Godspeed. I hope he does great things wherever else he decides to go. So I don't know. And with Adam Cole's contract, a lot of people are talking lots of stuff about that too. I hope he stays and go up to the main roster after he fights Kyle O'Reilly again. Like, if they fight each other again, which is looking like they're going to do an NXT TakeOver 36, let this be the last time and let Adam Cole go up to the main roster and challenge somebody there. Because I feel like him on Raw or him on SmackDown that's just straight money. Like, it's just money wherever he decides to go, as long as he doesn't get buried, on the main roster like they tend to do a lot of NXT prospects, NXT people that come up or whatever, then that's fine. Adam Cole just has the attitude, and he has the wrestling capability. He has the charisma. He has it all to succeed in the main roster. So I want to see him go up to the main roster and feud with Roman Reigns or feud with a Bobby Lashley. But the X factor in there is always Big E, because he has a Money in the Bank contract. But either way, I want great things for Adam Cole to happen in WWE. But if he also decides to go to AEW, then that's fine too. But, because he has friends over there, as well as his girlfriend, Britt Baker, the AEW Women's Champion, over there too. So, I mean, if he goes over there and challenges Kenny Omega for the AEW Championship and wins it, then him and Britt Baker would be champion together, and that would razz my berries, because I love watching couples do cute things. So, yeah. And lastly in the news, I want to send a congratulations to Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson, and him winning gold in the 125 kilogram class in wrestling. He's from Apple Valley, Minnesota. He's 21 years old. He's a heavyweight, freestyle and fall style wrestler, and he won gold, and he wound up beating Georgia's Gino Petriashvili 8-5 with time running out. ESPN said that he remained composed and took control against his more experienced opponent, scoring on a spin behind takedown with 10 seconds remaining, and then another with less than a second remaining to win the men's freestyle 125 kilogram class final 10-8 on Friday night. And he said that he was in shock. He looked at the clock and it was like 0.3, and I was like, ain't no way. And then my head, I was just flushed with everything, and I was like, wow. So he has aspirations to join WWE. So at some point, if that happens, that would be really cool. He's really young, so he has so much to offer if WWE decides to sign him to the Performance Center. So congratulations to him. He won $250,000. So he said that with his money, he plans on buying his mom a Louis Vuitton purse, because she's absolutely earned it, and he's also going to take his family out to eat. And he also talked about knowing GOAT manager Paul Heyman since he was in junior high school. And he was photographed at WrestleMania with Paul Heyman and with Roman Reigns. So who's to say? Maybe at some point he could join the bloodline. You never know. So that would be really cool. So congratulations to Gable. And I also want to send a special congratulations to Tamyra Mensah Stock, who won women's wrestling gold for the United States, and she became the first Black American woman to win wrestling gold in the 68 kilogram freestyle final. She defeated number 2 seed Blessing Oborodudu from Nigeria, and she's of Ghanaian descent, even though she represented the United States. Her father is from Ghana, and she dedicated her victory to him because he passed away years ago. And she's really excited about her squared circle ambitions. She has also mentioned that she wants to join the WWE as well. So that would be really cool as well. And that was really great for women's wrestling as a whole. The fact that her and Blessing both representing their Ghanaian and Nigerian descents in the Olympics as well. Just seeing Black women collectively as a whole, representing women's wrestling in the Olympics, also speaking to Sasha and Bianca and them facing off against each other at SummerSlam again, after their historic matchup, main eventing WrestleMania. It's just really cool stuff going on. So congratulations to wrestling, being represented in the Olympics like this. So that's it for news and gossip-ish, and that's a whole lot that happened. So yeah. And now I'm going to talk more about what happened in wrestling this week with Raw, NXT, and SmackDown, and a little bit of AEW thrown in there as well. All right, so in this weekly recap, I'm going to talk about Raw first. So, Raw... Well, I'm going to start with talking about the women first. And the first piece of women's action we got on Raw was Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. And this was really different because we had never really seen these two sort of face off in singles competition before. And then Nia Jax has been wearing her natural hair as of late, and it's really cute and I love it. But she keeps coming out with Shayna Baszler. And I thought for sure they had broken up, and then somehow or another they get glued back together again, and now they're breaking up again. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what happened between them, but it was just a little bit irritating for me to see them together yet again. Like, can we do something else with Shayna in which she's wrecking people yet again? Like, I'm ready to see her wreck people as a singles competitor. I'm tired. Like, her and Nia just need to stop being a team. Either way, Nia and Rhea Ripley were aggressive from the opening bell. Rhea tried to hit Nia with a headbutt, but then Nia protected herself with her head and sent the damage right back to Ripley. And then she crushed. This was a really, really scary spot of the match. She crushed Rhea's head against the ring post by throwing her whole body into her. And then when she tried to do it again, Rhea Ripley moved out the way. I thought Rhea was injured here because having someone run their entire body, like their entire upper body into your head and a ring post was just a whole lot. But it was okay because they kept going. So Rhea took out Shayna Baszler at ringside when Nia was avoiding a senton from the apron. Then Nia took advantage of the situation and sent her back into the barricade as they went to commercial. And they came back. And Rhea nailed Nia with a missile drop kick and then countered a power bomb. Then Shayna tried to distract Ripley, but then it ended up backfiring when she rolled Nia Jax up for the win. And then Nia and Shayna began arguing after the match, and then Shayna left while Rhea Ripley came back in and then took Nia Jax out with the Riptide. So yeah, I'm just ready to see Nia and Shayna just break up for real this time. I'm glad that Rhea is fighting new opponents. But also in the midst of her fighting new opponents, it's going to make her look stronger as she prepares to go into her triple threat match for the Raw Women's Championship against Nikki, Ash, and Charlotte Flair. So I'm really happy for that match. Also in the women's division, you had Doudrop, aka Piper Niven, versus Tamina. So Natalia's out with her injury that she suffered on Raw, I believe last week. So Tamina has been going on both shows and fighting in singles competition while still holding both of the tag titles. So they're still champions, so they're not taking that off of them. So Tamina had to fight Doudrop. So they're still hinting at the idea that maybe Doudrop might be about to break free from Eva Marie yet again. Because every time they interview her backstage, Eva always interrupts her and makes it seem like everything she's saying is unimportant. So that's happening. So, Eva Marie was in her corner and she was telling Doudrop a lot of what to do in the match, but it seemed like Doudrop had it handled on her own. So, they both collided into each other a couple of times before Tamina took Doudrop off of her feet. Eva got on the apron to try to distract Tamina and even prevent her from hitting a superfly splash. And then Doudrop ran her into the ring post and then hit an elbow drop for a 2 count. And this is where I got kind of sad for them, because as they were trying to put on a good match, the crowd in Chicago was chanting CM Punk. And I feel like that's become the norm for when you're discontented with a match, is that you either get bored, do something else, or you chant CM Punk. And I think that's kind of disrespectful, but whatever. Fans are gonna fan. So Eva tried to give Doudrop a lot of instructions, like I said earlier, but Tamina was able to avoid the crossbody and then hit a Samoan drop for the win. And then after the match was over and Eva Marie was trying to check on Doudrop to see if she was okay or whatever, Alexa Bliss taunted Eva Marie from the Titantron after it was over. So it's looking like Alexa Bliss is, even in light of the whole Bray Wyatt situation, Alexa Bliss is going to keep her dark persona as of now, and she's going to keep antagonizing Eva Marie, I guess, until they have a match together. But something that I do find interesting is the fact that on social media, a lot of people are noticing that Eva Marie is not garnering the type of heat that she garnered like earlier, like years ago. Like when she was Miss All Red Everything and Total Divas was a thing, before they decided to change the entire women's division to be just the women's division and not the Divas division. She would always elicit a lot of heat because everybody hated her and just thought that she was just there for the fame, and they would boo the crap out of her, right? But now it just seems like whenever she comes out with Doudrop, it's like lukewarm. It's like nobody really cares that much. So I don't know what they're planning to do with her as a character, but I do know that I am looking forward to the day that Doudrop, breaks free of her and becomes a star in her own right, and hopefully becomes Piper Niven and not Doudrop anymore. So also in the women's division, the main event was Nikki Ash versus Charlotte Flair in a no-holds-barred match. So they were looking to prove themselves. Nikki was trying to show that she could very well beat Charlotte Flair after Charlotte Flair beat her last week. So a lot of this match seemed like they were playing it as if it was one-sided, because they were making it seem like Nikki was just going up against someone who's just way more experienced than her and just better than her and better suited to be champion than her and Charlotte Flair, which kept irritating me, but it's whatever. The Queen proceeded to go at Nikki Ash hard right out of the gate, and she slammed Nikki's face into the middle turnbuckle before throwing her out of the ring. The crowd began to chant for tables, and then Charlotte basically pulled one out and from the bottom of the ring and then leaned it against the ring. And he should continue to beat up on Nikki and speared her through the barricade, which made me even more irritated because I'm sitting here like, Nikki, at what point are you going to rise up and kick this woman's butt? But whatever. Then we returned from commercial to see Charlotte putting Nikki on the top turnbuckle for a superplex. But then Nikki fought her off, but then missed her crossbody. Then Charlotte nailed her with a big boot, like she tends to do, and intentionally stopped the referee from counting the pin by pulling her up by her hair and just saying, no, I'm not done. And then she did it a second time just to prove another point. Then Nikki drop kicked a chair into Charlotte's face and then hit a DDT on the floor at ringside. Then Charlotte caught her opponent, coming off of the barricade, and then power bombed her through the announce table. Then Charlotte tried to cover her with one foot, and tried to step on her, which was so disrespectful, like mad disrespectful. But Nikki kicked out, and then she avoided a charging Charlotte, and then she sent herself through the table, and I was like, I enjoyed that way more than I probably should have. And she sent herself through the table that was set up in the corner, and then somehow, as Nikki covered her after that incident, Charlotte kicked out it too. Then Nikki grabbed her between the ropes and hit a twisting neck breaker to win the match and basically show that she can basically step toe to toe with Charlotte Flair. I was so glad that she won this match, just to prove to Charlotte that she just can't run over folks, and also to prove that her win with the Money in the Bank briefcase wasn't a fluke, because earlier Charlotte was doing a promo where she was talking about how she has to be literally insane to let Nikki Ash get to her just because she cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase. And Charlotte proceeded to talk about how she's sick of being cashed in on, because she has been cashed in on 3 times when it comes to the women's Money in the Bank briefcase. She got cashed in on by Carmella, by Bayley, and now Nikki Ash. And she was talking, and then she made this statement about Simone Biles being the GOAT and claiming mental health or whatever. And this was the first of 2 times somebody on a wrestling programming mentioned Simone Biles and her talking about her mental health and having the twisties in terms of pulling out of the Olympics, and then of course coming back in to win the bronze medal for the US. And the second person was Max Caster. I feel like whoever wrote those promos for them, or whoever, and since Max Caster was probably responsible for writing that godforsaken rap that he had where he mentioned Simone Biles, and then the vaginal health of a 19-year-old woman who came out there with the Varsity Blondes, whose name I can't recall right now. That's not cool. And also mentioning a rape scandal. And I'm sorry if this is triggering someone, but that's not cool. We need to stop making fun of people's trauma for the sake of viewership. What Simone Biles was going through was definitely like she was well within her rights to pull out of the Olympics, because she is the greatest of all time. She pulls off death-defying gymnastic stunts that so many of us cannot do, and it takes years of training to do it. And if she knows that she was out, and if she was out of the game, her head wasn't in the game, she had every right to pull herself out of it. And if we're making fun of it, then that just shows how much work we have to do to destigmatize mental health, and athletes prioritizing their mental health as well. Because at the end of the day, these people are human beings, and we can't just expect them to just perform for us all of the time. Like, they're not machines, they're humans. Just like we can take an off day or a mental health day when we don't feel like going to work, or we don't feel like dealing with people or whatever, or people have to take medicine for whatever type of mental health stuff that they have going on, then so can athletes. And we really need to stop making fun of them for it. Also, we need to stop sexually shaming women for having vaginas and for so many different things that women biologically have. Because at the end of the day, somebody somewhere needs that. So at the end of the day, you just need to shut up and stop making ugly comments about women like that. Because it doesn't make you cute. It doesn't make you edgy. It just makes you seem like a gross person who doesn't get anything. And that's my perspective on that. So going to the men, not even just talking about the men, but back into the women as well. Corey Graves made a reference to the WAP song by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion by asking Byron if he knew what a bottom feeder was. And I thought that was hysterical. Because they showed the picture of Megan Thee Stallion and Bianca Belair at Lollapalooza last weekend. And they showed those pictures on Raw, and then Corey really asked Byron Saxton if he knew what a bottom feeder was. And I'm just like, oh. That was funny. So the show Raw basically started with Bobby Lashley, the WWE champion and MVP, coming out to address a couple of things before Goldberg showed up to respond, because Lashley doesn't want to be bothered with Goldberg, but Goldberg clearly wants to be bothered with Bobby Lashley because it's SummerSlam time and old people have to come back. So MVP said that Goldberg is an icon who could still beat most men, but he said that the Almighty is not like most men. And then Bobby mugged for the camera while MVP asked if Goldberg wants to be remembered as a champion or a casualty. And then this is where Goldberg came out to give his response, and he said if anybody should be worried, it's Bobby Lashley. And he told Bobby that he looked scared, but if you looked at the way that Lashley was staring at him, Lashley looked, number one, unbothered, and number two, like he could kill this man in his sleep. So, yeah. Lashley just stared at him as he talked about what makes him Goldberg, and then he once again declared himself to be next before walking away. And then after Goldberg had left, Bobby Lashley got in Goldberg's son's face, who was seriously grown up. Like, puberty is insane. Because the last time we saw him, he was like short and had short hair, and he was kind of a chunky boy. And now he's all tall and lanky, looking like he could be a member of a boy band. Like, it's crazy. Really, really crazy. We're getting old. Then MVP talked some trash to his son before Goldberg came right back out and hit him with a spear, and him and his son basically walked back up the ramp and went backstage. So there's that. If there's any way to get a rise out of people, or a man or a woman, talk about their family or get in their family's face. it's just one of those things that just become a part of wrestling canon. Don't talk about family. It's all about family. Then Veer and Shanky had a handicap match against Drew McIntyre. So Drew McIntyre is still mad at him, at Veer and Shanky and Jinder Mahal for getting in his business, especially keeping him from winning the Money in the Bank briefcase a couple weeks ago. So Drew McIntyre, came out there and threatened them with his sword that he's now named Angela after his late mother. Respect and peace to him going through that situation, because that's not easy. So Drew McIntyre backed Veer into the corner and unloaded on him, but then Shanky ended up tagging in, and they ran McIntyre into the ring post together. And then Jinder Mahal's sidekicks kept the upper hand for a couple of minutes before McIntyre began to build up a head of steam. And then Veer took the brunt of his offense, which is only fair after Shanky had to take a dozen few shots from a steel chair. Then Jinder Mahal ended up causing a DQ when he attacked Drew with a chair. And then Veer and Shanky each grabbed their own chair, so McIntyre grabbed his sword. So, I mean, which one is going to win? A chair or a sword? I mean, I don't know. Then he knocked the chair from Jinder's hand and then knocked Veer out of the ring. And then Shanky put his chair down and got out of the ring as Drew was about to chase him with the sword, with Angela. So, yeah. I love that the sword has a name now, and it's named after somebody who means a lot to Drew. Because I like it when people name objects. It just makes it fun for me in my inner child mind. Like, yeah, it's Angela the sword. It's Francesca the trombone. Like, I just like stuff like that. So maybe, and everybody was really, happy about it and gave him a babyface cheer, which I'm glad that he's getting in the midst of, everything that happened last year. So that's cool. So yeah, I know that eventually him and Jinder will have a one-on-one match, and that'll be cool because it'll be like a 3-man band reunion without Heath Slater, which makes me sad, but this is where we're at in wrestling. Then Mace and T-Bar had a tag team match versus their former leader Mustafa Ali and Mansoor, who's just really happy to be there. Whenever I see Mansoor, he makes me so happy, and he just gives me like early Rocky Maivia vibes, like when The Rock was like a baby face at first and everybody didn't like him, but he was just really happy and honored to be there, like, yay, look at me. So that's just who Mansoor reminds me of. So Mustafa came out to the Chicago crowd, and everybody was happy to see him because that's where he's originally from. That's his hometown. Mace and T-Bar immediately asserted their dominance and took out both men. Ali was wiped out at ringside, and Mansoor was hit with a flying elbow drop from the top rope. Then Mustafa recovered and tagged in on his former stablemates for Retribution. Then he used his speed and agility to knock Mace off the apron and T-Bar out of the ring. And he and Mansoor hit simultaneous suicide dives on opposite sides of the ring, which looked really cool because I'm like, yes. But then for some reason, Mustafa looked like he was mad about it. And I'm sitting here like, don't be mad because Mansoor is jumping with you. Be happy because you two had that moment together. But, Mustafa has to be a grump. So it's whatever. Then T-Bar kicked Mansoor into the ropes and caused Mustafa to lose his balance, which allowed T-Bar and Mace to score the win. And this made me sad because I'm just like, how come Mustafa couldn't win in Chicago? Let him have his moment. But whatever, they're not letting people have their moment. So, I like that Mustafa and Mansoor are a tag team together. It's sort of revitalizing Mustafa after Retribution's been torn apart and he's just by himself and being angry. So I love watching Mansoor hug Mustafa, and Mustafa's just like, no, like, it's just really cute. Like, their dynamic is cute to me, and I want to see them go after the Raw tag team titles at some point. But then that's gonna be one-sided because AJ Styles has Omos, and yeah, that's a 7-foot man, so I don't know how that's gonna go. Then Damian Priest and Ricochet had a tag team match against John Morrison and Sheamus because, of course, The Miz is still in his wheelchair. So, Damian Priest was on an episode of Miz TV before this match. And something that I thought was really interesting as I was watching it was the fact that The Miz and John Morrison, have been joking around with their dripsticks and stuff, which I think is funny. But at the same time, I hated how they've basically been beefing with Damian Priest ever since they've been doing their feud, with Damian and Bad Bunny and stuff since WrestleMania, and it's like August now and they're still in each other's faces. But at the very least, Damian Priest gets to do something new because he wants to fight Sheamus for the United States title, which is great. But then at the same time, if Damian is beefing with Miz and John Morrison, and they were jaw-jacking at each other back and forth, but Damian Priest got real serious and told John Morrison that he was nothing more than the Miz's sidekick, and that the Miz was nothing more than a leech, who was leeching off of the talent of people who are like way more talented than him. And the Miz and John Morrison just kept responding with moist jokes. And that disappointed me, because I'm looking like, if you guys are going to be heels, how come you guys couldn't get in the face of Damian Priest and do something or say something as serious as what Damian Priest said to y'all about you being a sidekick and you basically being a leech? Like, that was lame. Like, that was really lame to me. But the match happened after that. So Damian Priest took control really early and hit a unique leg drop takedown from the middle rope, but then Jomo was able to kick out at 2. Then Jomo was able to ground his opponent in a submission, but then a few knees to the body helped Damian Priest escape his predicament, and he began to unleash a series of kicks and strikes. Then the Miz, being the X Factor in this match, sprayed him with a dripstick so Jomo could take over the match. Then Damian Priest countered the Starship Pain, but then failed to avoid a standing shooting star press. Then Jomo looked surprised that Damian kicked out of that. So this match was really good, actually, in terms of them going back and forth with each other. And I wouldn't mind seeing Damian Priest and Jomo fight again. So that would be a really cool matchup outside of the realms of tag team stuff. Then Damian dropped Jomo on his face before picking him up with a big choke slam to get the win. So Damian Priest has the momentum. Then Sheamus attacked him after the match, but then Ricochet ran down to even the odds and make the save, which made this turn into a tag team match. Then Sheamus spent a long time punishing Ricochet before he started to fight back with elbow strikes to the head. And then after both men made the tag, Priest hit Morrison yet again with his finisher to pin him for the second time. So basically, Damian beat John Morrison twice in the same night in different matches. And Sheamus was out there trying to, get him together or whatever, but then he wound up getting beat up by Ricochet. And I'm glad that Damian has a friend in Ricochet as opposed to just him being by himself since Bad Bunny left and stuff. So that was really cool. So I'm not mad about any of that. Then Matt Riddle fought Omos. And I feel like that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, Matt Riddle, he tried to get the upper hand before the bell by putting Omos in a sleeper hold, but of course Omos easily threw him into the mat, and then they took the fight out of the ring, and then Omos threw the original bro into the timekeeper's area, and then he could barely beat the count back into the ring. Then Omos immediately knocked him back down to the floor with a body tackle. Matt Riddle tried to gain momentum with a few knee strikes, which was pretty impressive, but then Omos took him down with one big clothesline to stop him, and then he picked him up for a two-handed chokeslam to get the pin. Like I said, any match with Omos is one-sided. It just is. So, moving on. Karrion Kross, the NXT champion, has been making appearances on Raw and fighting people. So him and Keith Lee had a rematch from last week where Karrion beat him, which made me sad and the internet very angry, because they were just like, which basically fueled their thinking into like, oh my god, Keith has to be leaving because of this, that, and the third, but nope, he's not. So they had a rematch. They locked up, and let me also say this before I go into the match. Karrion Kross looks so naked without Scarlett. And I'm angry about it. Like, him and Scarlett need to get back together. Like, they need to get back together. Not to say that they've broken up. They need to get back together and be a thing on Raw. Because him making his entrance and doing all of the stuff that he would normally do in his entrance without Scarlett is just naked, and it's weird. So it's like he's doing the Raw and all that other stuff, fall and pray, and she's not there, and it's weird. So yeah, they locked up and then struggled around the ring until Keith Lee put Kross in a corner, and they fought back, and then Karrion Kross fought back and seemed to have an answer for everything that Keith tried. And then I loved how the crowd was chanting NXT, NXT, because yeah, this is totally an NXT throwback. Yeah, and I felt like Keith deserved to get revenge for beating Karrion Kross. Get revenge and beating up Karrion Kross, because Karrion Kross beat him for the NXT title, which made me sad, but it's whatever. Then Keith Lee hit a slingshot crossbody from the apron, and Kross took him out of the ring and then suplexed him into the side of the steel steps as the show went to commercial. Then we came back from commercial to see Karrion still dominating, but then Keith Lee started to show some life with a flurry of punches and his signature double chest chop, which just sounds just horrible. Like, those two ham hands slapping into your chest, oh my god, I can't even imagine. Then both men countered each other's finishers before Kross was able to supply the cross jacket submission. But this time, Keith Lee broke free and hit the spirit bomb for the win. And he got such a huge reception when he won. Everybody was cheering for him and everything. And I was like, yay! Keith deserved that moment. He seriously deserved that moment after everything he's been through that we have yet to know about. It was good to see him get this win, and to get it in front of a crowd like a Chicago crowd was really good. That was really happy for him. Then Reggie and Akira Tozawa fought each other. And Reggie's entrance is really cool because he's able, to bounce around and flip inside the ring. And somebody threw mad shade at Sin Cara for not being able to do the trampoline jump in the ring thing, and I was just like, y'all so wrong for that. But Reggie does it every time, and it's just really cool. Like, he's talented, even though I was roasting him, at the early part of during the middle of the year last year, because he was always in the women's business and all that. But at least he has his own business now, because he's a 24/7 champion. So hey, whatever, he got his own business. Tozawa did a ninja pose before Reggie was able to hit a few quick moves on him for the win. So Reggie's still 24/7 champion. That's good. And that's pretty much all that happened on Raw. So now we're going to go to NXT. All right, so now I'm going to recap NXT, and this is different because the women really didn't have a match, but the women had some stuff going on. So I'm going to first talk about the promo that Frankie Monet cut backstage with Robert Stone and Jessica Maya backstage with Mackenzie Mitchell. So Frankie Monet was mad at Robert Stone for throwing the shoe at her and bossing her around or whatever, causing her to lose her match the week before. And so she was basically talking about how the Robert Stone brand needs to be revamped in her image. So it's looking like she's taking over as the leader, and Robert Stone doesn't like it. So that's pretty much it on that front. Also with the women, Dakota Kai cut the promo of her life against Raquel Gonzalez. As you may or may not know, Raquel Gonzalez, the NXT Women's Champion, and Dakota Kai were besties, right? And so in the ring last week, Dakota Kai was gassing Raquel up and basically saying, nobody could face her and nobody could beat her and all that other stuff, and talked about, how as long as they're friends, you gonna always be champion, how there's nobody left to defend the title against. So after this point, Raquel's music starts playing and she starts celebrating, and just as soon as she turned around, Dakota Kai kicked her in the face and attacked her and proceeded to talk about how and proceeded to allude to the fact that she wants to face Raquel Gonzalez for the championship. So this promo that she gave Tuesday was off the chain. She was talking about how just a year ago, or maybe, well, this is before the pandemic, actually. So when Raquel Gonzalez got brought up to NXT, you know, as a full-time star, because the first time we saw her was in the Mae Young Classic, she brought her up to be her muscle. Like, I've said multiple times on this show that I really felt like Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez were like Shawn Michaels and Diesel. So, she talked about how she brought her up to basically be her muscle, and how they basically, you know, came together and then dominated the women's division and even became the first ever NXT women's tag team champions, even though they lost it in one night. But, you know, they still had that. So after that point, she was talking about how everybody was basically passing her by and not, you know, paying her any attention, you know, to face Raquel, because Raquel was the one with the championship, and she accused Raquel of looking down on her and taking the spotlight off of her. So that's why she stabbed her in the back, to let her know that I'm the reason why you have everything that you have. And oh my God, it was so good. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, like, Dakota Kai just can't keep no friends. It's like, you turned heel for the first time when you stabbed Tegan Knox in the back and injured her. And now you've lost your muscle. So, yeah, girl, it's gonna be nice knowing you after TakeOver 36, because she gonna kill you. So, yeah, that was cool. And also with the women, which really didn't involve the women per se, but still had the women in it. You had the Love Her or Leave Her match with Dexter Lumis versus Johnny Gargano. And of course, Dexter was fighting for the heart of Indy Hartwell, because Indy's a part of the way, but her and Dexter Lumis have been flirting with each other back and forth for the past couple of months. It kind of gives off Mandy Rose and Otis vibes, but at the same time, it's still its very own unique thing, because Dexter Lumis is, you know, the silent type, and he draws pictures or whatever. So he expresses his feelings in other ways, and Indy, it really resonates with Indy, and Indy wants him. But the Way doesn't want her. Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae don't want her to be with him. And it's just so stupid, because I don't understand how a married couple can be so anti-love when it comes to their children. Like, it just, that pisses me off. But Dexter was fighting for the heart of Indy Hartwell, and I'll talk more about that later, because like I said, it has more to do with the men, but also to do with the women at the same time, but I'll talk about that later. So also, they had a segment showing Zoe Stark and Io Shirai trying to get to know each other in an Asian restaurant. And Io Shirai just looked disinterested and basically talked Zoe Stark into eating things that she really wouldn't have eaten otherwise. And they're just having a hard time connecting, which I think is pretty funny and also really strange, considering they're the women's tag team champions of NXT, but whatever. So yeah, that's really all that happened with the women. So in terms of the men, the show started with Ashanti the Adonis and Top Dollar from Hit Row fighting against Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde from Legado del Fantasma, because they have their whole little feud going on. So they were dissing each other back and forth, rapping at each other back and forth and everything. And then Hit Row brought the fight to Legado del Fantasma before the bell. And then once things calmed down, Top Dollar threw down around Joaquin Wilde with ease. And then Santos Escobar distracted the referee, which allowed for Joaquin Wilde to pull Adonis outside and throw him into the barricade. Now, let me just say, Ashanti the Adonis is a really cute guy. He has some nice long hair, and he's cute. And he looked good in this match. That's my thirst of the day. Actually, no, I have more for SmackDown, but we'll save that. As Top Dollar took control of the match, Escobar pulled Top Dollar outside and then hit him with a steel chair. And then in the chaos, Legado del Fantasma attacked Isaiah Swerve Scott, the NXT North American champion, and ripped the grill out of his mouth. And I got really mad, because I was like, oh my God, you don't just rip a grill out of somebody's mouth. I thought that was mad disrespectful. And I actually said that on Twitter. And then, something that happened that really surprised me, but I really liked, was B-Fab actually grabbing a steel chair and and actually hitting one of the members of Legado del Fantasma, and then Top Dollar worked together to send Escobar running away. And if it's one thing that B-Fab isn't, she isn't scared to get rowdy with the boys either. Like, I love that her presence is not just, I'm just gonna look pretty and stay here with all these boys. Like, no, she's gonna get in on the action too, and I appreciate that, because Legado del Fantasma doesn't have a female companion, even though I feel like they could, but they don't. So B-Fab really does, become hands-on with the fact that she's going to hit people and smack people, even if they are men. And I like that. So that was cool. And I hope that Isaiah Swerve Scott gets his grill back, because, yeah, you don't take out a man's grill. Then Ridge Holland had his returning match against Ikemen Jiro, who was in the breakout tournament but got eliminated. And he likes to wear really cute jackets. And I think Tuesday he had on the one with the watermelon, which is one of my favorite fruits. So that was cool. So Jiro tried to jump at Ridge Holland to open the match, but he barely basically made a mark on this dude. Like, this dude is huge. I said on Twitter that I feel like Ridge Holland is what happens when Walter and Brock Lesnar have a baby. Like, he's the perfect combination of those two. So Ridge Holland hit a pounce outside, then sent Jiro into the barricade, and then Ridge Holland ripped off Jiro's jacket before finishing him off with a Northern Lights bomb. And then Holland threw Jiro out of the ring afterward to allow Pete Dunne to speak undisturbed. So then Pete Dunne put over his crew with Oney Lorcan and Holland as the most dangerous trio in NXT. So Holland beat Jiro by pinfall. So that was pretty much it. And I'm glad to see him back after his injury. So that was cool. I'm just wondering what direction is Pete Dunne and Oney Lorcan and Ridge Holland going to go into. Because Pete's basically been in a faction ever since Pat McAfee was there talking trash at Adam Cole. And now Pat McAfee got his promotion to SmackDown. So it's just been kind of weird and kind of aimless with him now. So I don't know. And plus there's all those rumors about his contract and everything possibly being up or whatever after SummerSlam. So I don't know. Then we had Roderick Strong with the Diamond Mine, which is -1 member now, versus Bobby Fish. And Bobby Fish has also been fired as well. So there goes my dream of a possible reuniting of the Undisputed Era on the main roster. Because god dang it, firings. They showed a video package ahead of this match, that was recapping Roderick Strong's interview with Wade Barrett, while adding Bobby Fish's own words, for his fellow former Undisputed Era member. Then Bobby Fish showed in the match that he had a plan early, connecting on a barrage of kicks and forearms, which worried Malcolm Bivens early, but then Roderick Strong fired back with his signature backbreakers, which are just heck to watch. Then Bobby Fish found his comeback, and then Strong threw him over the top rope to emphatically take out his opponent. Then Roderick Strong planted his rival with an end of heartache for the victory. So then later on, Kushida accepted the challenge for Roderick Strong for an NXT Cruiserweight Championship match. And this is the last time we'll ever see Bobby Fish in WWE, which saddens me. So, yeah. Then we had Cameron Grimes and LA Knight in a tag team match versus the Grizzled Young Veterans. And now the Grizzled Young Veterans have their scarves on WWE Shop. And I'm so glad, because I love their scarves. So, yeah. Cameron Grimes was checking with LA Knight before the match to make sure, they were on the same page. But then, of course, LA Knight promised to help him, but did not force Grimes to wrestle in the butler attire. So I didn't believe this one bit, because LA Knight is just always, looking for his own agenda here. And he's always looking to make Cameron Grimes look like an idiot. So I was just skeptical the entire time. So the Grizzled Young Veterans ran down the tag team in front of them on their way to the ring. And then Cameron Grimes planted James Drake with a crossbody. But then Knight accidentally distracted his partner and then allowed Gibson to get a hot tag to take down Cameron. Then Cameron crawled to the corner to give Knight a hot tag, but then LA Knight jumped off the apron and left Cameron Grimes by himself. Like, I figured that he would. And then Cameron Grimes fired up, but then he still ran into the Ticket to Mayhem and wound up losing the match. So after he lost, the $1 Million Man, the OG $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, confronted Cameron Grimes at the edge of the ring, and he told him that he had to find his way out of the deal before helping him to the back. So it seems like here, Ted DiBiase has become sort of an ally to Cameron Grimes because he sees that Cameron Grimes has the heart of being the actual $1 Million champion, has the heart of a champion, period, even though LA Knight is bullying him and acting like he's really a nothing. And I'm really glad that he has him as an ally, because I think that's a nice rub, from management. And it's just, a cool thing in general when you have an OG like that beefing you up and trying to, help you get your confidence back while you're working for this butthole. So yeah, that was cool. So then we had another breakout tournament match with Trey Baxter versus Joe Gacy. And this match was pretty okay. Gacy came out swinging at Trey Baxter, throwing around his weight. And then Trey Baxter found just enough separation to dive onto the big man repeatedly. And then Joe Gacy rolled back into the ring, clearly dazed by the offense. But then Trey Baxter followed him in with an impressive, innovative offense that kept the action moving. And then finally, Trey Baxter hit a 450 stomp for the victory. So Trey Baxter is going forward in the tournament. So Baxter is now going to be facing, I believe, Odyssey Jones later. So that's going to be interesting. Then Samoa Joe attacked security because General Manager William Regal told Samoa Joe that he had brought security to keep Joe and Karrion Kross away from each other, because Karrion Kross is still on NXT and him and Joe have challenged each other for an NXT title match at NXT TakeOver 36, which is going to be Sunday, the Sunday after SummerSlam, because SummerSlam is taking place on a Saturday this year, and I won't be able to watch it because I'll be working, but it's whatever. So they showed a video package of the history of Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross. And I feel like, that match is going to be really good. I don't know if Karrion is going to lose, though. I'm not sure about that. I'm just not sure just yet. Because they've had him on Raw and NXT lately. So I don't know if they're planning to just bring him up after this match or what. So I don't know. Then they showed Karrion Kross arriving before the main event, to stand on the announce table to mock Samoa Joe. And then Samoa came out there and pushed through security, but then Karrion Kross disappeared and basically left the security guard to take a coquina clutch instead. Because Samoa Joe does not give a crap about any security. He is security. Like, he's just a weapon of mass destruction at this point. Then NXT showed a prime target vignette on the rivalry of Walter and Ilya Dragunov, because they're going to be facing each other for the NXT UK Championship at TakeOver as well. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool. So I don't know, maybe Ilya will beat him, or maybe Walter will just continue to be the Bruno Sammartino of our time and continue to hold the UK title for as long as he so chooses, because he's just a big brute. We'll see. So the main event was Dexter Lumis versus Johnny Gargano in the Love Her or Leave Her match. So if Johnny Gargano won this match, then Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell would have to, not see each other anymore and not flirt with each other. But then, of course, if Dexter Lumis were to win, he will win the heart of Indy Hartwell, and then they'd be boyfriend and girlfriend forever and ever. Amen. So Dexter Lumis drew a new picture of his future with Indy Hartwell, and Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae both told Indy Hartwell that Index has to end, which makes me mad because, you guys are married to each other. You guys are a power couple. Why won't you let your quasi-adoptive daughter have some love in her life? That's disrespectful and it's evil. Either way. And it's toxic parenting. Either way, whatever. So Dexter Lumis found himself at a disadvantage early on in the match against Johnny Gargano. Johnny planted Dexter with a suplex on the outside, which sent Indy running down the ramp to ask Johnny to give Lumis the chance. But then, of course, Johnny kept refusing. Then Candice LeRae arrived when Hartwell and Lumis met hands below the ring and were holding hands. And then the distracted allowed Johnny Gargano to attack Lumis, planting him with a series of running kicks. Then Dexter Lumis went for a springboard elbow, and then Johnny Gargano dodged and locked Lumis in the Gargano escape and then in the ensuing action, Hartwell took an elbow from Lumis accidentally, and Dexter Lumis was looking really distraught here because he knows he didn't mean to hurt Indy or knock her down. So afterward, Johnny Gargano took advantage of the distraction to hit his one final beat move outside, followed by another one inside the ring to win the match. And so they were walking away to walk Hartwell out, and they were telling Indy, no, you just need to get over it. He's not good for you. I won the match. It's done. All of the above. But I was rooting for her to say, you know what, forget them, leave them. And so she actually ran away from them and then jumped on Dexter and started kissing him. And this is where NXT ended. And I was so glad because I'm just like, girl, sometimes you just have to follow your heart. And if your heart is leading you away from your family and to the arms of someone who really loves you, that you have a connection with and isn't being terrible to you as a person, then go to that man and love him and kiss him, or go to that woman and love her and kiss her, whatever you like. So yeah, that was how NXT ended. And now we're going to recap AEW. Okay, so for a little bit of a change, I'm going to do a weekly recap on AEW Dynamite, because I actually watched it this week. Now, sometimes I like to take a little bit of a break from watching a lot of wrestling, because I feel like if I watch so much wrestling at a time, my head will explode. But I watched AEW this week just to shake things up a little bit. So I'm going to start with the women like I always do. And Britt Baker accepted Red Velvet's challenge. So Britt Baker, if you may or may not know, is actually known as Dr. Britt Baker DMD, because she's actually a dentist in real life, and she's the AEW Women's Champion, and she was accompanied by her bestie Rebel, who likes to help her cheat and stuff. So there's that. She's a bad guy. And Tony Schiavone came out and basically tried to interviewed her. And Baker cut a promo basically talking about how she's the best and everything, and how excited she is how AEW Dynamite is going to be in her hometown in Pennsylvania next week. But she was interrupted by Miss Red Velvet, and she expressed interest in challenging for the women's title, to which Baker reminded her that she beat her in 3 minutes the last time they fought each other. But then Red Velvet mentioned that her 21-4 record basically qualifies her to be next in line for a title shot. Britt accepted her challenge, naming Rampage in Pittsburgh as the location, which will take place next Friday, not next Wednesday, sorry. And then she beat up Red Velvet and added a stomp before standing tall to close out the segment, and she left. So I've only seen Red Velvet fight a couple of times, but she is pretty good. So I'm interested in seeing her, face off against Britt Baker. So that'll be interesting. So I'm cool with that. Also with the women's division, you had a match involving the Bunny and Legit Layla Hirsch. And just looking at Legit Layla Hirsch, she looks like an Olympic wrestler. Like she could really be an Olympic wrestler. Or maybe she trained for it at some point and just didn't get a chance to do it. But she looks amazing though. So they were fighting each other to become the number one contender to the NWA Women's Championship, which is being held by Camille, who looks like a goddess in the ring. Like, she's super tall. And I'm just like, whoa. But they proceeded to fight each other. Layla Hirsch was battling the Bunny. So the Bunny dominated entering the commercial break, and then she shook off an early attempt by her opponent to grab a hold of an arm bar, and then they exchanged glares with the title holder at ringside. Then Hirsch mounted a comeback and then applied another arm bar for the submission victory. And the Bunny tapped out, so that's it. And now Camille is facing off. Camille comes into the ring, and this is where I get interested, because I'm looking at Camille. This is my first time ever seeing her, and she stands up right next to Miss Hirsch, and I'm like, whoa. Like, she's super tall. And I'm wondering why her and Jade Cargill haven't fought. Like, ma'am, like, you're like an Amazon. And she was just amazing. So that was interesting. And then after the match, Smart Mark Sterling, which I guess is his nickname now, he's an attorney. And Jade Cargill was checking in and talking about, you know, how come they haven't been on TV lately. Because she's basically been doing deals and trying to get, you know, shopped on the Hollywood movies and stuff. And then he revealed that she will return to action Monday on AEW Dark Elevation, which takes place on YouTube. So there's that. And I think that's pretty much all that happened with the women on AEW. You know, they could stand to have more women's action, but I'm not really going to go into that right now. So the show began with one of the labors of Jericho, which is chapter 3, because Jericho had to win this match with a top rope move, and he was fighting an old rival in Juventud Guerrera with MJF on commentary, who's his mortal enemy at this point. And if it's one thing that MJF does know how to do, he knows how to get on your nerves. And throughout the entire time on commentary, he was just being mad disrespectful to referee Aubrey, mad disrespectful to the commentary team. He's just a disrespectful person. Like, if you look up the definition of disrespectful in the dictionary, MJF's picture would be right next to it. But anyway, Chris Jericho fought his longtime rival Juventud Guerrera. So the quick high-flying Guerrera was keeping Jericho off guard really early, only for Jericho to halt his momentum and deliver a crossbody from the top rope. Then Jericho delivered a backbreaker, but then referee Aubrey refused to count, reminding Jericho that he has to win by coming off of the top rope. So he countered a top rope hurricanrana by Juventud and applied the walls of Jericho, but then Guerrero fought out and then hit the Hoovy driver 1 minute later for a near fall. And Jericho recovered and delivered the Judas effect from the top rope and then scored the win. So before Jericho could even celebrate this win, after the match, Wardlow attacked him while MJF announced that next week's Labor will be a match against Wardlow with MJF as the special guest referee, to which all of the crowd were booing and all of the above and showing him the middle finger and stuff. The AEW audience can be very rough at times. Like, they do not give an F. So yeah, there was that. Then we had a trios match with Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley, and Darby Allin, with Sting on ringside versus Daniel Garcia and 2.0. And I feel like one of the members of 2.0 looked really familiar to me. He looked like one of the dudes who used to be in Everrise who got released. And I feel like, and I don't want to be right or I don't want to be wrong, but he really does look similar to one of the dudes in Everrise. So I don't know. So Matt Lee and Jeff Parker of 2.0 basically teamed up with Danny Garcia to fight the other three. And they dominated early, but the chop block by Lee allowed his team to take over, heading into the picture commercial break. And then when they came back from the break, the action broke down with Jon Moxley running over Garcia at ringside and then Allin wiping out Lee. And then a tag to Jon Moxley sparked a comeback that culminated with Allin, saying his name is so weird, Darby Allin, executing a coffin drop to Garcia for the pinfall victory. And then afterward, they stood tall alongside Sting. And then a video package recapping Brian Cage's feud with Team Taz aired after that. Because apparently Brian Cage is beefing with the team that he used to be with. And I really don't know what else to explain from that, because this is my first time watching AEW in months. So, yeah. I'm so excited I'm meeting Sting in 2 months, because he's supposed to be coming to Alabama Comic-Con, and I'm specifically going in, or probably not in cosplay. Hopefully, we'll see. You'll be surprised if I do. And I'm gonna meet Sting, and I really want to meet him because he's like, I've been watching him like since I was a kid, so I'm really pumped to meet him. So yeah, that's pretty much all that happened. Then we had Christian Cage versus The Blade, and then I was really excited to see Christian wrestle here because I hadn't really seen him since I don't really watch AEW on a consistent basis, I hadn't really seen him wrestle since he was in the Royal Rumble with Edge, and him and Edge had that moment and they hugged, and that was pretty much it. So this was interesting. So Christian Cage fought the Blade, and legit Layla Hirsch attacked the Bunny early, which removed her from the equation and ensured that Christian would have a fair shot at beating the workhorse of the Hardy family office. Hardy gang. Then Blade managed to seize control of the match throughout the commercial break, but then Christian fought back and he withstood a late surge by the Blade to deliver the spear and pick up a win, remaining undefeated in AEW singles action, which basically means at any point he could possibly challenge for the AEW title that's currently being held by Kenny Omega. So that's cool. Then the Elite beat down Hangman Adam Page. So Hangman Page joined Tony Schiavone for another in-ring promo, but then he found himself cut off by the arrival of the Elite. That's Kenny Omega, the AEW champion, the Young Bucks, the AEW tag team champions, and the Good Brothers, who I believe are now the Impact tag team champions. So yeah, Kenny came out there and accused his former friend of trying to rejoin the Elite, but basically said that the group doesn't allow any type of losers, noting that everyone involved holds some type of gold and that he just doesn't, add to the hype anymore. Then Adam Page reacted with a hard right hand and punched him, but then immediately the Elite attacked him and jumped him and stuff. Then the Dark Order came out and tried to, help him out, but then Stu Grayson and Evil Uno was like saying, nope, let's not, because he did tell them earlier in the night that he just didn't want their help and that for now that we're done. So they're just like, nope, if he said he doesn't want our help, then we're not going to help him, which is kind of sad, but it's whatever. And they basically beat up Adam Page, and then they also beat up Elite Hunter Kazarian to basically end the segment here. So I just don't know what this is going to entail, because a lot of people were saying, and Jobber Tears was saying this, that Hangman Adam Page should be next in line for the title, but then he got beat last week in a match, so which sort of knocks him out of contention, I would assume. So I'm not necessarily sure how that's gonna go, but yeah. Then we had a TNT Championship match with Lee Johnson versus Miro, and I was rooting for Lee Johnson here because I root for everybody black, and because of that whole thing that came out earlier in the week about AEW just sort of pushing forward a lot of their champions, being white people, but I'm just gonna chill with that. So Miro was defending the championship, and so he overwhelmed the challenger early and often, dominating the match throughout the commercial break. But then Lee Johnson was just not giving up, and he just kept, fighting him and kept, hitting him with everything that he had, and I was really impressed with him. Johnson's comeback involved a dive over the top rope, a crossbody, and a super kick that momentarily rocked Miro. But Miro recovered though, and then ultimately applied the accolade, which he now says, "Game over," because he used to say Rusev Crush, but that's not going to happen. And he got the submission victory, and Miro retained the title. Also, during this time, I noticed that Miro calls himself, God's favorite champion or something like that, or God's favorite wrestler or something, because now he's doing this thing where he thanks Jesus, his matches, which I think is cool, because I'm a Christian, but at the same time, he's a heel, and you can tell, so it's odd. But yeah, congrats to him. Then we had the main event, which is ultimately what I think I was watching it for, was Malachi Black, formerly known as Aleister Black, versus Cody Rhodes. And I was genuinely surprised with how this match turned out. So, Malachi Black made his entrance, his dark entrance. And then Cody Rhodes came out, and then Malachi was sporting black while the American Nightmare was wearing white, And then Black kicked the left knee of his opponent and then gouged his eyes and then applied a half crab. Then Cody Rhodes tried to create separation and scale the ropes, but And Malachi rocked him with a kick that knocked him from the turnbuckle and threw a table at ringside. And this part was really weird because it felt like after Malachi kicked him, Cody jumped into the table and he didn't necessarily sell the kick on time. And that just made me feel really weird because I was just like, it just looked like the kick was like a tap and you were just like, oh, I gotta react. And then you were like, oh, I'm falling. And that's kind of what it looked like, but let me just chill. So Cody limped back into the ring. Malachi hit him with the black mass, but I'm not sure that's what they called it on commentary, but we know that that's what that is if you watch wrestling on a consistent basis. And then he placed one foot on the chest of his opponent. Malachi Black actually won and beat Cody Rhodes clean, which was surprising because from what I hear, Cody Rhodes doesn't put people over that often, especially over himself. So I'm like, he won? Really? Wow. And then after the match, this was really weird because it got kind of emotional. Cody cut a promo, then hinted that he was going to retire and, leave everything and everybody behind and stuff like that. And he even included a reference to infighting among the EVPs of AEW, which I thought was like, whoa. And then as he was getting ready to take his boots off, which is what I learned is a signifier of you putting your boots away and retiring or whatever, Malachi came back into the ring and blasted him with a crutch in order to end the show. And plus, I thought it was weird how once before the match ended and he was selling the black mass, and after the match ended, it's like Cody got back up, even though he was being helped up and everything by the referee and somebody else. It was just strange that he just got back up and just started talking. In WWE, when anybody got kicked with the black mass and that was like the end of the match, you knew that was the end because the opponent did not get back up after that, did not talk, and did not say anything after that. You just get kicked, and that's just it. You just get knocked out. So that was just really strange. But yeah, that was my experience watching AEW. And now we're going to do the last recap of SmackDown. Alright, so now in our final weekly recap, I'm going to recap SmackDown. And SmackDown was lit last night in more ways than one. Oh God, it was amazing and sad at the same time. But yeah, here we go. The show started with Sasha Banks, who made her return last week and wrestling a tag team match, only to turn on the SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair. So she came out there and explained why she did what she did, and how she felt disrespected by Bianca, who's basically been, on a tear since she won the championship at WrestleMania against Sasha Banks in their historic Black Girl Magic match, which they won ESPYs for. And Sasha Banks was saying, I'm the reason why you have the ESPY. I'm the reason why you get to hang out with Megan Thee Stallion. I'm the reason why you were able to perform at Roll Aloud, all this other stuff. Like basically saying that I'm back to get the spotlight that I deserve because I'm the reason why Bianca is able to enjoy all this success. And even after, she was saying that even after their WrestleMania match, that Bianca didn't even tell her thank you, and yet she's coming out here dissing me every week and all this other stuff. So Sasha was just taking credit for all of it and basically said that she would be nothing without me. And Bianca Belair came out and didn't take too kindly to any of that. So Bianca said that basically, as I remember correctly, it was you who was begging me to choose you to fight at WrestleMania, which may or may not have been true. Because of course it was Bianca's choice after she won the Royal Rumble who she could face, and Bianca chose Sasha. But to be honest, Sasha was kind of saying, I want you to face me, so it's whatever. So after that point, she made reference to the fact that she disappeared for 4 months after Belair had beat her and took the title. And Belair basically said that if Sasha wanted to get a chance at the title back, she could get it. But this brought out Zelina Vega, which basically had all the sass out here. And there was a point where Zelina was basically saying, that Sasha couldn't just jump her ratchet self in line, which is so funny because I haven't heard anybody call Sasha ratchet since the early NXT days of her career or whatever. Like, because everybody used to say Sasha's ratchet, clap, 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 which Sasha said in an interview years ago that she thought they were saying Sasha was rat shit. And she just had no clue what the word ratchet even meant at that point. But yeah, like, it was so funny to hear Zelina call her ratchet or whatever. And she basically said that Belair, that if anybody was going to fight, Bianca Belair for the title, it was going to be her. So Bianca was like, okay, so if you want to fight me, I'll accept your challenge and Sasha Banks' challenge for SummerSlam. So later in the show, she said that she would get her opportunity. But then when Zelina Vega was saying that she wanted to face her immediately, she was saying this to Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce. They were both saying that they didn't have time to promote the fight, so their fight would be non-title, which made me upset because I'm sitting here like, oh, so she can't have a verbal challenge for the title, but John Cena can just thrust in and write his name on a contract that didn't even have his name imprinted on it. And Sasha can use her horsewoman privilege to go in and challenge Bianca Belair for a title at SummerSlam. I mean, yeah, y'all got time to promote that, but at the same time, you be giving everybody else opportunities, but yeah, you can't give Zelina Vega one. Yes, this is a Zelina Vega stand podcast. She deserves the opportunity at the title too. Like, I know she just came back, but my thing is, I want to see her win in these streets. I'm tired of seeing Zelina Vega lose. Like, she is a great wrestler. Like, why aren't we giving her more opportunities to express that and show that? Like, for real. Like, I'm sick of it, but it's whatever. She and Bianca Belair had their non-title match, and Bianca Belair came out there with her pink and black gear on. It was looking cute. It was giving Hart family vibes. It was cute. And she came out there with, her braid, all the way down, and had her edges laid and everything, looking cute per usual. And she wound up beating Zelina Vega with the kiss of death. And there was a point where Belair was dominating the match and had her, and had Zelina Vega pressed and everything. But then Sasha Banks came out there to try to distract her or whatever. And then Bianca was like, well, come on. If you want to fight me, then come on. Like, she's not scared. But then Zelina Vega, used that distraction to turn the tables on her and hit her with a DDT outside the ring. But that momentum didn't necessarily last long before Belair was able to take back over by hitting the kiss of death for the win. So I feel like Bianca versus Sasha 2 is going to be an amazing match, because their first match was amazing. Like, if their first match is going to be, a contender for match of the year, then their second one should be nothing short of amazing. And I'm team Bianca. As much as I love Sasha and believe that Sasha is the greatest women's wrestler of all time, I'm rooting for Bianca. I don't want her to lose. So yeah, there's that. And also with the women, on SmackDown, we had Tegan Nox versus Tamina. Like I said in the Raw segment, Tamina's out here, fighting people on one-on-one competition since Natalia's out with an injury. And she was able to fight Tegan Nox. And they're actually using her name here. And this match was relatively short. It was okay, but it could have been better in some places. But Tegan Nox wound up winning the match after a distraction from Shotzi Blackheart shooting her toy missile at Tamina from her tank, which they're calling the Taking Care of Business tank. And Tegan Nox rolled her up for the win. So yeah, there was that. And that's pretty much all that happened with the women. But the women's action was very, very, very solid here. And all of the sass that was coming from Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, and Tamina, well, not Tamina, Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, and Zelina was everything I could have ever asked for from those girls. It was so, so cool. Like, I'm trying to figure out, oh my gosh. I'll figure out what exactly Zelina called Sasha, like, because it was just really funny. It was like a ratchet. It's like 1 minute you had Pat McAfee calling Baron Corbin bum ass. Yeah, there we go. A ratchet little vulture. She called Sasha Banks a ratchet little vulture, which kind of fit her outfit that she had on, because Sasha came out there looking great, looking like Beyonce or whatever. But she came out there with these sleeves on that were sparkly and everything, and she actually called her a ratchet little vulture. And then when she was talking to Bianca Belair, she was talking to her with a really thick Queens, New York accent, because that's where she's from. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, it reminded me a lot of a Facebook status that I saw where folks from the South be throwing mad shade at people who say, oh, I'm from New York and da da da. But then people from the South be looking at them like, and like, that's what I feel like Bianca Belair was giving to me. Like, she was just like, okay, girl, whatever. Like, I'll fight you. Even though they said nothing about I'm from the South or I'm from the North. It's just, to me, it's just like when she kept coming at her, with that accent, I was just like, look, Bianca's not scared of you, ma'am. She's the only 10 we see because she's from Tennessee. So let's go. But that's pretty much all that happened with the women. Now, when it comes to the dudes, on the other hand, Finn Balor is really pushing for a Universal Championship title match against Roman Reigns, even though they got Roman versus John Cena set up for SummerSlam. So I don't know how that's going to happen. So Paul Heyman was interviewed backstage by Kayla Braxton, my heart, saying that John Cena's contract to face Roman Reigns is meritless, as the contract was intended for Finn Balor. And he talked about if he had a legitimate contract for $75 million, if he attacked Tom Brady and signed his contract in his place. And he basically said no, because that wouldn't make any sense. So, due to the absurdity of the situation, he said Roman Reigns had nothing to say about John Cena's contract. So he's not acknowledging John Cena at all. But he's using his energy to acknowledge Finn Balor, because he was the one who he really wanted to face. But then as Paul Heyman was going back inside the locker room with the tribal chief, Big E was standing right in front of him after he ran down Kayla Braxton. And he was laughing at him, saying, ha 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 ha. He was laughing at him and holding the Money in the Bank briefcase on his shoulders and giggling and stuff. And everybody popped real hard for Big E, because I'm sitting here like, see, that's the X factor in all of it right there. That's the T right there. That it doesn't matter who wins the Universal Championship. If Big E decides to cash in on either one of y'all, it'll be over. And then Big E could be Universal Champion. Who knows? Ha ha. So that was funny. Then Finn Balor had a match with bum-ass Baron Corbin, as what Pat McAfee kept calling him. And Corbin, of course, came out and apologized to Finn Balor for ruining his SummerSlam contract last week. And Finn Balor wasn't accepting it, because he said that he's not the smiley face Finn Balor that he used to be a long time ago. So, after the match, the match was relatively quick, and even though Finn Balor put in some offense, it really didn't help. After Finn hit that coup de grace on him and hit him with the 1, 2, 3, Finn Balor is still out here looking like he doesn't have a homeboy that could give him a shape up for free and getting his hair cut for free and all that other stuff. And it's just so sad, but it's whatever. And don't nobody feel sorry for him, because he's been mean all this time. So hey, whatever. This is just karma. So after the match, Finn Balor said that he wouldn't sit back and smile about the situation, and that he'd run through John Cena to get his match with Roman Reigns, just name the time and the place. And this is where everybody was chanting for John Cena to come out, but John can't come out because he's out here promoting the Suicide Squad movie that he was in that came out this week. So he ain't there. So this brought out Roman Reigns. And then Reigns said that he understands Finn Balor's frustration, especially with John Cena, but that he needs to remember that Reigns tried to give him an opportunity and that Balor needed to keep Reigns' name out of his mouth. Then Finn Balor shoved Roman Reigns from the ring, only for Roman to land on his feet like a cat. Like, bro, what? And then he got jumped from behind by the Usos when they were still chanting for John Cena. So Finn Balor fought back and then took out both the Usos, because he ain't scared. And he drew Roman Reigns back to the ring after he took off his little jacket or whatever and took down. He didn't take down his hair. And then Finn Balor took the fight to Roman Reigns, but then he was again attacked by the Usos. This time with the numbers being too great for him to, rise up from that. So I feel bad for Finn Balor because he has a worthy argument. Like, he wants to fight freaking Roman Reigns, and he has the right to fight him because he never lost the Universal title. He never really had a chance to get it back. Whereas John Cena kind of just threw himself in and just decided, I'm going to sign this contract in the place of Finn because nobody wants to see that. Now, mind you, Roman versus John Cena is, a very intriguing option for us to see at SummerSlam because that's a big 4 show. But Roman versus Finn Balor makes all the sense in the world because Finn Balor is consistently a fighter and he's consistently there and he's not Mr. Hollywood. So it's very confusing. I'm wondering how they're going to work that out. But either way, it's still intriguing. So then Jey Uso fought Dominic Mysterio and beat him after a top rope splash. And even though backstage Dominic was talking about how he really didn't need Ray's help, and Ray was saying how he really didn't need Dominic's help, Ray was still coming in the clutch and trying to keep him from getting attacked by Jimmy Uso in the match. But after that happened, Dominic got distracted and he wound up losing. So Jey Uso has the advantage in terms of that. And they're supposed to be facing each other for the SmackDown tag titles at SummerSlam. So there's that. Then King Shinsuke Nakamura had a match against Apollo Crews. And I was so glad to see Apollo Crews as the Intercontinental Champion fighting somebody else other than Big E. Because if I saw him and Big E in the same ring one more time, I might have just snapped on somebody. But that didn't happen, and now he has a feud with Shinsuke, who's riding all the momentum of stealing Baron Corbin's crown and having Rick Boogs out there with him. And I thought it was cool how Rick Boogs was out there, to introduce Shinsuke. And before he said his last name, the crowd said his last name. And I was like, oh my God, Rick Boogs is over. I'm so happy. And that was just really cool. And, I'm just really happy for him in that aspect. But then the match ended via DQ after interference from Commander Aziz, which upset me because I'm just like, dang it, you just stay ruining good matches. So it's whatever, but I think it's safe to assume that Shinsuke and Apollo are going to be going up against each other for the IC title. And I feel weird because I feel like Apollo's character, in terms of him being the Nigerian brute that he once was against Big E, is just sort of wearing down because they're not putting so much into it like they used to. And I feel like they need to do that, or otherwise it's just gonna fall off a little bit. So yeah, it's weird. Then Edge and Seth Rollins went at each other and proceeded to talk trash to each other because Seth Rollins was on the screen via satellite and Edge was out there in the ring saying, I bet you he doesn't want to face me right now because he's not even here and he's scared of me, right? So Edge laid down the challenge at SummerSlam, but then Rollins, blew off and saying, I would consider it, I'll think about it. And then Edge continued to push and said that Seth Rollins was nothing more than Edge light. Edge great value. You're just a wannabe me. Like, it was so amazing. And then he proceeded to call him a fake televangelist, which is true because I've said on this show that I feel like, or at least my boyfriend said this, that he feels like Seth Rollins' character reminds him a lot of Joseph Seed from Far Cry 4 or 5. And Joseph Seed was like a really scary preacher man who started this cult, in middle America, and then basically was talking and basically led these people to take drugs and all this other, but Seth ain't doing that. But he's basically dressed up like a crazy televangelist. And the suit Seth had on made him look like an AKA. No disrespect to Pink and Green, but that's really what he looked like. And it was just really funny. And so Seth Rollins got really mad when Edge told him that you're just, a carbon copy of me. And he accepted his challenge. And so we got Edge and Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. So that was really cool. And then Montez Ford and Dolph Ziggler, the Street Profits and the Dirty Dogs had a tag team match against each other. And Montez Ford wound up winning the match with his amazing From the Heavens frog splash, which seems like it hurts him every time he does that. And it's just so weird because he just got a surgery on his ribs. So I want Montez Ford to kind of take it easy on him on those things. But then again, those frog splashes are amazing. Like, the airtime he gets is just like, whoa. It's like he believes he can really fly. And then it's just like whoosh and then plah. So yeah, it's cool. So yeah, that's just really awesome. So that's pretty much all that happened on SmackDown. It was a pretty solid episode. I'm gonna need for Zelina Vega to just get some more justice though, because I love her. And I also want to send a shout out to her because she actually followed the Hardy Wrestling Podcast page on Twitter, and she follows me on Instagram too. I think she saw the post that I made about her, wondering what she would have to say about the Aaliyah music situation with Blackground Records, because a little bit off subject in terms of wrestling, Aaliyah and the estate, the R&B star who tragically passed away 20 years ago in a plane crash, the estate is going back and forth with her uncle Barry Hankerson, who's in charge of Blackground Records, which is where she recorded most of her music. And now Blackground Records has now decided to make it available for streaming within the next couple of weeks to coincide with the 20th anniversary of her passing, to give fans availability to stream her music everywhere outside of YouTube, because you haven't been able to play her music any place except YouTube and Pandora for like the past 20 years. So now it's going to be on streaming, like on Spotify and Apple Music, hopefully, and stuff. And the estate and the Aaliyah estate doesn't necessarily like that, because they feel like it's just a cash grab on the part of the uncle, and they would rather it happen another way. And considering Zelina Vega has shown time and time again that she is a huge Aaliyah fan, I was just saying, I wonder how she felt about that. And I guess she saw it and she followed me on Twitter, and I'm so glad she did. And yeah, if she ever wants to come on the show, she can. I'm not sure. It would be wonderful if she did. So yeah, that's pretty much all that happened on SmackDown. Alright, so thank you for listening to this new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Like I said, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And you can follow the podcast pages on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. You can also check me out on Women's Wrestling Talk this week, as me and my Women's Wrestling Talk sister and boss lady queen TK Trinidad interview Evilise. So please check that out on Fight TV, because we now have a deal with Fight Television. So now you get to hear women's wrestling news and see our interviews on Fight TV every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I believe. So please check that out. I'm really excited about that, and I'm really blessed to be a part of that collection of hosting families with all of them. So please check out Women's Wrestling Talk and see what we got going on there. And of course, within the next few weeks, I have, on the same night as SummerSlam, I'm going to be commentating for the Belladonna division event, Genesis 2. We're going to have Belladonna Bros wrestling for it for the first time. And we're going to have the all-female show as well. It's featuring someone who I had on my show, Amber Rodriguez. She'll be on the show along with Renee Michelle, Maserati Lazarus, and so many other great talented women from the independent circuit coming to our show to wrestle, and I'll be commentating. So please buy your tickets. I'm going to be sharing the flyer more so on my pages from now on, and hopefully have more people from the show, on my show in the next few weeks. But if not, then that's fine too. I'll still be talking about it and bigging it up. And shout out to Casey Dillon and Veronica Fairchild for this amazing Southern wrestling show that we get to partake in here in Gadsden, Alabama. So with that in mind, thank you for listening to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl, Stephanie Hardy. And until next time, I hope you're being your best self and you're being healthy and stuff. And I'm just hoping that, you're just taking care of yourself and being awesome. So until next time, this is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast signing off. Bye, y'all.